All right. So next we have an item under our public hearing, general plan amendments, specific plan amendment, and a mitigated negative declaration to facilitate the development of a hotel located at the former Feather River Mills site. So we have a staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Arnoldo Rodriguez, Development Services Director. The item before you this evening, it's a general plan amendment and an amendment to a specific plan, specifically the central area city specific plan. And just for the benefit of both the council and the members of the audience, the city itself has a handful of master plans or community plans. The entire city, roughly 15 square miles, is located within the boundaries of the city's general plan. However, then we have a separate plan that gets just that. It's a little bit more specific, and really it better outlines a vision for certain neighborhoods or certain pockets. Historically, specific plans were usually done to try to maintain a certain character of a neighborhood or to address certain either issues or certain vision of a particular neighborhood. So the central area specific plan was adopted in 1992. It's slightly smaller than 300 acres. And at the time, the city was struggling to identify a real vision for that area. So after a lot of community outreach, the city commissioned the study. It took about 1.5 to 2 years to draft the plan. However, prior to those 2 years, there was a lot of public outreach done by the community, by the city, to make sure that whatever plan truly reflected the desires of both the community, the leaders at the time, and the property owners. So in general, the plan itself largely serves as a roadmap for future decision making. So the plan itself, here's a map. The northern boundary is largely Highway 20. To the south, it's just south of Franklin Road. To the east is the Feather River, and then to the west, it's somewhat it's a very circuitous map going to the west because it's just off of Plumas, and the further south you go, a little bit further to the west. So there's a couple of key identifiers, Highway 20 to the north, and then along the southern boundary is are the fairgrounds. The site itself, it's right at the heart of the plan area. It's the former Feather River Mills site. So since the adoption of the Central City Specific Plan, a couple of major developments have occurred. So again, I'm really going back 25 years here. So one, we had the reconstruction of Pluma Street. We have the aquatic park. We have the new Fifth Street Bridge, which is under construction. We've had extensive public improvements made to Bridge Street. We've had a lot of private public improvements along Plumas Boulevard. And then we also have the potential redevelopment of the Feather River Mill site, which is close to 6.5 acres. The item before you this evening is not for the entire 6.5 acres. Rather, it's only for the southernmost 1.5 acres. So back in November, I did a brief presentation to this council where we talked about taking a three-prong approach to updating the plan itself. Phase one is the item that's before the council tonight, which is to amend the southern portion of the Feather River Mill site to facilitate the development of a hotel. Phase two, which again is not before you this evening, however, it's going to be going to the Planning Commission and before this council in the immediate future, is to update the regulations pertaining to bars, nightclubs, and restaurants serving alcohol. And then phase three is largely a recalibration of the plan itself to make sure that we identify the vision for the area, and then also making sure that we have the proper zoning in place, the proper regulations, and then going back to what Darren just spoke about a few minutes ago, largely getting out of the way and letting private development do what it does best, which is truly to develop and grow businesses. So the site itself, again, it's roughly 1.5 acres, the southern tip of the Feather River Mill site. It's on the hard corner of Shasta and B Streets. This is a conceptual site plan of the hotel. So the site plan, again, it is going to be located along the southern boundary. So the reason why I say it's conceptual, because there's still some items that we're working through with the applicant, who's Mehmet Noyan. So a couple of key things about this site. This site was historically planned and zoned for industrial, which was reflective of what was on the property back then, going back to 1992. When the city designated that as an industrial use, they did so because they didn't want to make the uses non-conforming. Since those uses are no longer there, I think it's imperative to really take a look at the planning and the zoning to make sure that it's reflective of what can we want there. With the new construction of the bridge, we felt that it was an opportune time to really recalibrate our planning. And so the new bridge itself is going to come in along the western boundary, and it's going to provide great visibility. So because of that, quite frankly, we think that the site itself, it's better suited for commercial use versus industrial use, because again, we are going to have proper access. We're going to have a lot more passersby along that roadway. So again, so this project itself, it's to amend the Central City Specific Plan, the general plan, and currently the site is already zoned for commercial. However, the Central City Specific Plan and the general plan don't designate it for commercial, they designate it for industrial. So really what we're trying to do is marry both the zoning and the planning. So the existing zoning, so this is a little confusing. The zoning today permits a hotel. However, the general plan and again the Central City Specific Plan are industrial. And then also within this Central City Specific Plan, there's language about having storefront commercial. However, after taking a hard look at the project site itself, we felt that instead of having it storefront commercial, which is more appropriate along Plymouth Street, that we would treat this site a little bit different, and it's more of a large regional center instead of a main street. Because quite frankly, because traffic is going to be traveling at a slightly higher rate of speed, and it's not very conducive for pedestrians because you're going to have 4 lanes of traffic right to the north, we felt that's a little more appropriate to have it designed to more reflective of a center versus a downtown, or so not a downtown, but a true main street. So a couple of things that we were concerned about initially was traffic. We wanted to make sure that whatever traffic is generated from this site is not going to have a negative impact. So the city commissioned a traffic impact study. We reviewed 7 intersections, which staff selected along with our consultant. The only impact would be at the intersection of B and Boyd Street. And when I say impact, and that sounds like a strong word, however, it's nominal. It's half of 1%. So it's a very, very small number. However, we did identify it, and as part of the project, the applicant is going to have to pay their fair share, half of 1%, for the ultimate improvements of that intersection. So again, a very, very minor number. And then we also commissioned a action plan, because we also understand that the property, again, it does have a long history. There's been a lot of uses on the property, and it is contaminated. So the action plan identifies the different elements that are found on the property, and it also identifies the steps necessary to mitigate those. And so the overhead can simply provide just a synopsis in terms of what it's doing. And at the end of the day, the very positive news here is that none of the contaminants actually permeated into the groundwater. So that's key for us. So with that being said, the applicant is going to have to remove roughly 10,500 cubic yards of material, but that's not just from the 1.5 acres, rather that's the entire 6.5 acre site. The remediation so action plan if followed is going to allow basically all uses. So in theory, if someone wanted to come in here and build homes, the site itself, because of its history, would not limit it. So really, and that's very good news. The action plan was reviewed and approved by the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board, who's a responsible state agency, and the cost to remediate is roughly $1.5 million. Those costs will be borne by the applicant and not by the city. Also good news. So in terms of this project, staff did prepare a negative declaration. We did identify mitigation measures which were incorporated into the project. We sent it to the state clearinghouse. Also, we sent it for tribal consultation pursuant to CEQA. And again, we did incorporate mitigation measures pursuant to the action plan, and then again, the half of the 1% for traffic. So with that being said, staff recommends that the council this evening adopt the environmental assessment prepared for this project and also approve the general plan amendment, modifying it from industrial to commercial, and then also approving the specific plan amendment to the Central City Specific Plan. So with that being said, that concludes staff's presentation.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Bring it to the council if there's any questions at this time before we open it to public. Nothing? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor. I did neglect to add one point. So yesterday, around midday, we did receive a notice from a surrounding property owner, and I believe he's probably here today. He said he was going to speak. And so just for the benefit of the council, the property owner owns this property, which has served as a tow yard for approximately 55 years. He's controlled it for 30. And since it's here this evening, I'll be quiet and I'll let him come up. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open to the public hearing on the general plan amendment, specific plan amendment and mitigation declaration to facilitate the development of the hotel located at the former Feather River Mills site is now open. If any of the members, we do have Dan who would like to speak. So
Hi, I'm Dan Preston, and we've owned the tow yard for about 15 years. But it has been a tow yard. That area has been a tow yard for a good 30 years, at least, probably more like 40. Being used for towing and recoveries is what it's what it's been used for, and that's what we still do. We work for all the police agencies in the area. And just to be a good neighbor, I just wanted to bring up, I'm not against anything, any new projects, any new building development. I just wanted to bring up the fact that situated where we are, you can see us from the hotel, and that sometimes we have lights on, backup beepers, and we have LED lights on over there. I talked to a fellow named Mehmet today, the developer, and he said that all of that's been taken into consideration, and they realize that we're going to be making noise from time to time, that the fairgrounds is going to be making noise, probably more noise than we do. And so I feel that after I've talked to Mehmet, I realized that there's someone has gone and taken a look around the area before they built the hotel. So I just wanted to be a good neighbor and let everybody know that we make noise over there and have lights and stuff like that. And I didn't want to, anybody to be upset later that, well, we didn't realize that these guys were over there or something like that. But it doesn't happen all the time for us. But we welcome development in the area, and I really appreciate the straightforward approach that everybody here has for the development, and to look around and have a common sense sensitivity to what's already there. So, thank you.
thank you, Dan. We really appreciated your letter and your concerns, so we appreciate your participation in making sure all was covered. So thank you. Do we have anybody else who would like to speak? Nope. Okay, we'll bring it back to the council for any questions or any recommendations or approvals.
Through the mayor, just a couple points, and I appreciate the comments from Dan. Really, Dan's been one of those individuals that's been in our community for a long time, has made some investment there, has done a great job providing services to our community. But Dan, I just want to know what type of LED lights you're actually using over there, because as I drove around it, they're pretty bright. So I do appreciate that. So I just need to get whoever makes those and whatever model they are from you. There's ways to shield those, and I'm sure when you talk to Mehmet, there's going to be some landscaping and some other things that will be able to screen a portion of your yard off, and I think that's one of the things that's important about that location. In many hotels, they're set up so they're in a high use area, adjacent to highways, freeways, things like that. Lighting doesn't necessarily affect a hotel user unless they come in somewhat impaired and forget to close the blackout curtains on a hotel. But that just means they're going to wake up early. But I think that there's a lot of things that we can do just to make sure that this works for you, works for the city, and it's just going to be a good neighbor process that's I think will be beneficial to that part of Yuba City. So,
Yeah, thank you for bringing up some of those points.
yeah.
They also said that the best that they have is soundproof, more soundproof.
Yeah, so the comment off mic is that the windows themselves, and Mehmet brings this up, has insulation in the windows for sound protection, and that's an important feature that they're going to put on that hotel. He is aware of the noise that would be coming occasionally from over in the fairgrounds area. So, thank you very much.
Any other comments or motion?
Move to approve staff's recommendation.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. Project is approved.